And I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hey, friends, Coos County, Oregon, America, and beyond. I want to thank you for joining me on the Rob Taylor Report. It's going to be a great show today. I've got a candidate who's going to come on, which I love talking to candidates during the election season and finding out where they stand before they go into office, and hopefully they don't get too taken over by the pod people in office, because that happens a lot. You talk to these candidates and they sound great while they're campaigning, but once they become in the position that they're campaigning for, and they become the person who either a senator or House rep or a commissioner, they sometimes change of what their real stance is. I do have to make a comment about where's 3H Tree Service. We're going to change that around because Matt Wilbanks is working earlier in the day. So a lot of times he is having to leave the job and get the job finished well before 3 o'clock. So we're going to have to start playing Where's 3H Tree Service. We're going to have to start it at noon. And what we're going to do is we're going to announce it on Facebook. We're going to announce it on 3H Tree Service Facebook page, and we're going to announce it on the Rob Taylor Report Facebook page. And it's going to start at noon. And if he's still working by 3 o'clock, we'll announce who the winner is on the show. But it'll be the same rules. It'll be the same game. And it will be 3H Tree Service trying to give out money every Monday. Well, we're not playing this Monday because we're changing around how the game is. And so we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. I also want to mention that I did an interview today on Lars Larson. And the reason I do a long version interview is because you never get enough time to explain yourself. And I don't think I know Lars didn't give me enough time to explain myself to the questions he was asking me. And if I would have had more time, I could have gave more of an in-depth reason why some of the things he was asking about David Brock Smith, why we were saying about David what we were saying. And when I say we, I mean me and Ben Edel from Ruck Pack. But, that's the way it goes. At least Lars gave me the chance to respond, and I did it. You can catch it on LarsLarson.com, LarsLarsonShow.com, I think it is, and you can listen to the podcast there. I felt a little bitch slapped. What can I say? That's what happens when you go into the political arena. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you get hit. That's just life. And so I have no qualms with anything that I have said or done when it is concerning David Brock Smith. I stand by everything I say. I stand by everything that I have said about David Brock Smith, and I can back it up with facts. It's and if Lars would have gave me more time, I would have been able to answer the questions a little bit better. That's okay. That happens. But I see that Matt Holman hasn't come on the air yet. He's not waiting in the virtual green room, as I would say. But I do have a senator candidate. She's going to join me right now, and that is Ashley Hicks. Ashley, how you doing? Hey, there you are. How you doing?
I don't know internet or was the audio, but you were kind of sounding like a robot there for a second. I could barely make you out. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your camera is kind of moving in slow motion. And like you said, I don't know if it's the internet connection or not. Hopefully it's going out over the air much better than what we can see here. But yeah, it's sometimes that happens, especially when you're on phone and you're outside.
Okay.
Maybe you're not getting the Wi-Fi as well as you should.
Yeah, that's why I moved from the vehicle closer to the house, maybe thinking that might make a difference. I can certainly hear you a lot better.
Good. Well, that's a good thing. So how are you doing today? Where are you at?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm at my mom's house, one of her properties, and just working around here, trying to clean up things, just busy all the time. Waiting to take possession of another property that she's had squatters living on, and just realizing Douglas County and the state of Oregon seem to have something of a racket or a business started with this landlord-tenant stuff, this process. They're the ones that have gotten the most money out of this entire ordeal. It's just constantly the county clerk and another fee to the Douglas County Sheriff's Department. It's absurd.
It is absurd, and the squatting situation in Oregon is getting ridiculous. And the laws seem to favor the squatters. And if you call the cops and complain that there's trespassers or people breaking into your house, the squatters, if they say the right things, will actually fool the police, and the police will tell you, the landlord or whoever owns the property, that it's a civil matter, not a criminal matter, and then you have to go through the court process. Isn't that
Rob,
correct?
I'm gonna interrupt you for just a moment because your audio is going like a robot again. Is there an option that I may be able to call you in on the a number so I can hear you and you can hear me?
Yeah, what I can do is you can just call it in. We can do a call in on that. That'd be perfectly fine. But you won't have the.
Do you want to phone me from your studio, or do you want me to try to call you?
Well, I'm not in the studio. I do this from the bot. I'm losing her now. Boy, I love technology. It's a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing. And so I'm going to give her a call here and see if I can. There it is. The phone is ringing. All right, we're going to see. We're going to see if we can get a hold of her. Hey, Marla. Marla is calling, is watching in Union County. Hey, Marla, glad to see you watching. Hopefully we can get this candidate in. You know, this is the modern technology, the miracle of modern technology. You never know what the hell's going to happen. So hopefully we'll get her to call in. That's silly. That's silly. Let me see if I can call her again. See, she's probably on the phone trying to connect in, and here I am calling her. And so she doesn't know whether to answer the phone or to reconnect with the show. This is the problem of modern technology. It's just overwhelming. Come on, Ashley, pick up. I promise you, it won't be that painful. Oh, I don't know what we're going to do here. Well, that's yeah. Well, we'll see if she calls me back. Hopefully that's her mobile phone, and we'll see. And yes, Marla, I am having a beautiful afternoon. You know, it's been mostly sunny. It's starting to get cloudy right now here on the coast, but it was mostly sunny, and I went out to check out the partial eclipse. We're having the partial eclipse, and I was outside checking it out to see how that was going along, and luckily I've got glasses that I can go and check that out, and it was really cool. I got to see all of the little bit of eclipse that we had, and you can't look directly into the sun. Yeah, well, you can if you're on acid. If you're on a lot of dosage of acid, you can look directly in the sun. But normally I recommend against it. And so I had these special glasses that I was able to wear, and it was really cool to see the partial eclipse of the sun. It's we didn't get to see the full eclipse, and it was funny because I was on the phone to my cousin in Amarillo, Texas, and he was telling me how right now he was able to watch almost the full eclipse. And then I had another friend, Danessa Rains, who's a friend of this show. She was in Texas. She flew all the way to Texas to go check out the eclipse, because you know how many people were saying, "Oh, it's going to be the apocalypse. The apocalypse is going to happen," and I now know, if you know of an eclipse in advance, how people were able to fool other people with their magic of blocking out the sun when it was just a natural occurrence of an eclipse back in the old days. Because here in modern times, there were people who were actually saying, if you believe it or not, that the eclipse was going to be bringing the apocalypse. And well, here I sit, no apocalypse, unless it's happening out there in the real world and I just missed it. So that's pretty much what I've been doing, Marla. I hope you've been having a wonderful day. So I might as well talk more about the interview that I got to have with Lars Larson. And what we were talking about is that David Brock-Smith had sent me a cease and desist letter. And part of that cease and desist letter, part of it dealt with Ben Edel and RuckPack, and part of it dealt with me sharing memes and articles from RuckPack. And I couldn't believe that I was actually getting a cease and desist letter demanding that I stop sharing articles and that I stop sharing memes, which, I really didn't get to go into that with Lars Larson because he didn't seem to want to talk about that. Oh, hey, look, I got Ashley on the phone again. How's that?
Well, you sound a lot better. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
What
I had
magic
to make
did you
some
do?
technical changes on my end over here, but I think I cleared out the Wi-Fi signal enough to do this.
Oh, that is cool. So you were just telling us about the squatter situation.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I can't believe it. That's horrible. I'm a landlord as well. And if we had squatters, I don't know. I'm one of those people who, I could see me doing something that'd probably just end me up in jail. So like you said, the legal system.
Honestly, I think that they are kind of counting on that. I mean,
yeah,
that seems honestly what the deal is that the officers would rather, and I don't know that it's the officers. I mean, I'm really hesitant about saying that, but it almost seems like, the system is absolutely, focused on the tax paying citizens and the law abiding citizens. And, we're the ones that can make the money and pay the fines. And I mean, the criminals, what are they going to do? They're money makers for the county. They're not necessarily the people that come in and pay the fines and whatnot. So
how long did it take you to get them out?
Well, I filed a 24-hour notice on account that this is a true squatter situation. There's never been a tenancy agreement and there's never been any money exchanged. And that's kind of the fundamental of being able to file a 24-hour notice for the adverse possession, which is basically this guy just came in and just hijacked the place because it was empty. And so I filed that 24-hour notice on the 24th of February. And I've been in court twice. My first court date, I signed the first court date. Basically, we would have won at that point in time because the defendant didn't show up for court. But the deputy out in the sheriff's office, because you have to pay them to serve the paperwork. And so that officer failed to post the summons and the complaint in a timely manner. So by that court date, the judge said, well, all your paperwork's in order and the defendant's not here. We'd otherwise be, giving you the possession of the property now. But we see the deputy didn't file the paperwork in the timely manner. So we had to amend the paperwork, set us out for another 10 days for another court date over that. And
That's
during that
unbelievable.
time, the police had been back to the property, and Pacific Power, because the neighbors had notified me that there was power at the unit. And so by the time Pacific Power got out there and investigated the complaint over the theft of services on the power, um, we learned that Pacific Power doesn't cite for theft of services anymore, and there's an ORS number for it. He said they haven't cited for theft of services. Pacific Power hasn't for 10 years. And he said for that to happen, basically Pacific Power has to notify the deputy. The deputy gives the individuals the ticket, so on and so forth. But as a property owner, I had no leverage there. And so yeah,
How
anyways,
does
it
that
went
make
on
you
for some
feel?
time. Been to court several times. I'm at the courthouse more this last month than anybody I know. I mean, I'm not sure the county commissioner's at the courthouse as much as I have been over the last 30 days. And even now, right now, we won the court date. The judge says, "Oh, well, you can go down the court's clerks and pick up your right to restitution, and that'll be ready in 30 minutes." That was on a Thursday morning at 8:15 when we had court. That wasn't signed by the judge. It's one piece of paper, and it's a digital signature. And the judge said, "Oh, it'll be ready in a half an hour." It wasn't ready until Tuesday afternoon.
How
Every
ridiculous.
time you call the court's clerk, you get an answering machine. It doesn't matter which number you choose. And today, the last court clerk right to restitution notice said that they actually gave him another move out date of the 7th of April, which is Sunday. And then so at that point in time, because he hadn't actually left he literally just rode his bicycle by flipping me off. The guy from the squatter from the other property. So anyway, so he got Sunday as the move out date, and then today, this morning, he was still there. And so I was back at the sheriff's office, had to go back to the court clerk, paid them another $47. This is for the writ of execution. And then the lady says, "Oh, well, the judge, he has to digitally sign that again. And so we'll call you when that's ready." And I said, "Well, do you know if that's going to be today or what?" And she said, "We'll just call you when it's ready." So I've called a couple times already today and just answer machine on that. And so anyway, when that's ready, hopefully today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, I really don't know. That's the system we're working with here. And that's the state of Oregon court clerk. Okay. And the sheriff's deputy, I'll go over there with the thing from the court clerk, and I'll give the sheriff's deputy another $139, and the deputy will come out and actually forcibly remove the individuals if that's what needs be. I mean,
What
so
stops them from moving back in? Say you get them forcibly
well, what's
removed.
going to stop them from moving back in this situation is that when we are there with the officer, they normally give about a half an hour so you can call a locksmith. But because the situation's sort of unique and there's several RVs and camper trailers on the property that have been moved on there, once the officer and the deputies have secured the premises and make sure that nobody's there and there's no dogs and there's no people hiding anywhere, then we're going to take plywood and secure those units, and we're going to remove those units and bring them over to the property that I'm at now. And we're going to store those because it's uncertain to me if I'm supposed to store his property for 30 days or not. And so I may have to, you know what I mean? So this actually may not be over for some time because we won the judgment in favor. And so now it becomes this tally of what is it going to look like to small claims lawsuit him. And I've talked to a collection credit company. They said that they can take the judgment and then basically they'll attempt to collect on it for 20 years.
Let me ask you, in a ballpark figure, how much has this cost you and your mother?
Oh, my mom, it's cost her potentially her life. I mean, she's had 2 heart surgeries over the last couple of years, several stents replaced. The entire ordeal of this going to court, the uncertainty of what's going on, the absurd lack of communication in the process. There's not a pamphlet. There's no step by step on what to expect. The whole thing, the county just, and the court clerks just hangs you out to dry. I mean, they really want you to go and get an attorney, and then you're waiting on the attorney, waiting for the attorney to respond, paying an attorney. And it's just, that's where I go with the whole thing of this being a business for our county. And I think that they're basically racketing this, between the attorneys and how they're all monopolized together under certain offices, and then just basically the cost of this. Like I said, the court clerk and then the Douglas County Sheriff's Office has just raked it in off this one deal. And so it's cost my mom thousands, because she actually did go in and get an attorney. I think that I am a bit more confident in reading complex legal material. And so I was able to navigate this very complex system. But I just don't see that being the norm for most people. I mean, just absolutely not. I mean, it's you
Right.
it would be smart for somebody to actually seek legal counsel, make sure that they have somebody that's advocating for them and working them through the process, because every chance, I mean, there's so many opportunities just to fall into a pitfall, and then just, either lose your case based off of a default, or, just who knows. I mean, as tit for tat, and how as specific as they want us to be, the court wants us to be with being there on time, being proficient, being punctual, all these things that they require of us when we're navigating the system, is just out the wind with them. I mean, like I said,
Right.
the judge said a half an hour, ended up being 3-4 days through the weekend and 2 days into the next week. I mean, the judge, it's honestly, the whole court system experience was like a third world country. I mean, we might as well be having court in Mexico or something. I mean, it's absolutely to that level of absurdness. I absolutely encourage you and your listeners to go and sit in on a civil court case and listen to this kind of nonsense. I mean, they're completely 100% for the criminal. They want to give them every benefit of the doubt.
I just went through recently. I had a sponsor of mine who was defending his property, and got the cop showed up and took the side of the criminal. And we've been going through a court case now for the last, 6 months, where the criminal is basically been able to maneuver and manipulate the system to their benefit, because that's how the law is written. So I can only imagine how horrible it is with a squatter.
The criminals, they get free legal support. This legal aid, I don't know if you guys got that up where you guys are at over there.
Yes,
but
we do.
Legal aid should be ran out of our town. They should be ran out of our county. Literally, they are working against us. They are working against the tax-paying citizens of our county. They, any chance they get to represent the criminal and try to use the system to slap every other taxpayer across the face, they do. And they honestly, I hope to God they get shut down and they get ran up. You go talk to people, talk to real victims that are in the court clerk, fighting for custody over their kids, fighting, these just the sad stories that you hear in there, and there's zero confidentiality. I mean, you're talking about people in there wanting to change their gender, change their last name, change parental custody and whatnot. But some of the stuff that you hear is just heartbreaking. And it seems like they could at least have some confidentiality, especially when it concerns kids and the kids' information. And they should invite somebody over to a private area when they're talking about parental stuff and the kids' information. It's just absolutely just this is just madness. This is craziness. And the court clerk, there must be office cubicles for 100 people up there, and there's only 10 people maybe in there. I mean, the entire floor. I don't understand how we can even justify keeping the courthouse with the power and the utilities on, because there's nobody in there working.
Right. Right. I know we're the same way. It's the same way here with Circuit Court. But you're running as a candidate for Senate District 1. If you're able to get into the Senate, you win the election, what would you do about the squatters, the way the court deals with them, and the attorneys who are defending them? Because that's like there's like several different issues to attack the squatters thing. Tell us what you would do.
Well, what I would do, I would just make it illegal. I mean, it's illegal. What is going on is when you go and hijack something, that means you have taken something that does not belong to you. You know, these situations, there is no tenancy agreement. There's no paperwork. If somebody is going to claim that they're a rightful tenant, they need to provide paperwork. They need to provide a tenancy agreement with somebody's name on there that is the owner of the property. What is happening is it's burglary. It is property damage. It's criminal trespass. It's theft of services. It's fraud. I mean, let me count the ways that they've already broken the rules that have already been adopted. And that's sort of what I'm talking about right here. The court clerk and the sheriff's office and these attorneys have basically interpreted the law in the way that benefits them in the most way. That's the gist of it. And so basically what needs to happen, what our House and our Senate needs to do, is they need to get back to what the law is that's already been adopted, that's already in play. That's what we have. We need to follow the law. This interpreting these laws in these liberal ways that benefit criminals is the opposite of justice. It's tyrannical. You know, it's basically they're hurting their own constituents here.
So we've got Virgil Osborne. He's making comments in the on Facebook right now, and I think he's got some pretty legitimate questions. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's State Rep Virgil Osborne. He's asking,
cool,
how's she going to get that through the majority party and Kotex? Because anything you put forward is going to be crushed by the majority party, and that's probably the biggest problem.
I do not know that. No, I do not know that. I mean, I respectfully, Virgil, I mean, I hear the fear mongering. I hear that from everybody. I mean, mostly from people that don't want to do the work that's necessary to make the change that your constituents are asking for and that they're demanding and that they expect. I mean, all of it is fear mongering. Oh, don't do it. Don't do this. Oh, how's this going to work? That's not going to work out for you. You can't be successful if you don't do this. Or, you have to convince Kotek and convince the Democrats. You don't think that they're property owners too? You don't think that they're going to court and they're fighting for their investment properties? You don't think that there's Democrats involved in the investment world or in the mortgage world? I mean, they have interest too, financial interests, and they want their properties protected too. It's like, come on now.
The problem is, though, they're going to want a virtue signal to their leftist agenda, the people who support their leftist agenda. So how are you going to convince them, even though they're property owners, even though many of them are probably landlords? How are you going to convince them? How are you going to work with the left to be able to get them to support those kinds of bills? Would you be willing to compromise on other issues that you support, such as gun rights?
I don't know what that means.
Would you be willing, if they were willing to tell you, hold on, Ashley, let me put it this way. If they were willing to tell you this, we will support your squatters law to make it tougher on squatters, but you would have to vote for an anti-gun bill. Would you give them that compromise?
No, heck no. And what in the world would either one of those things have to do with each other? That's nonsense. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't a poker game for me. I'm not playing a game with your tax money and your confidence and your trust when I go to Salem. I'm going up there to do the work. I'm going up there to actually work. That's what I do. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. I work all day. Either, there is no compromising. There is only doing the work that you're expected to do. And squatters should have no rights. That whoever even coined that term should just be like grabbed by his ankles and like just drug out into a public square, because the whole concept of squatters having rights is just, how do I even know that that's a liberal leftist agenda? How do I know that that's not, a Republican that's trying to basically invest in those democratic ideas? It's not like,
Well,
it's
well, let
not
me
like people
explain it
haven't
this
played the
way.
other side before.
Let me explain it this way. Court Boyce was just on an anti-gun bill, and the reason he was on an anti-gun bill is because he thought he had a deal with a Democrat legislature that she would oppose transgenderism, but in the end, he found out she was going to screw him over, so he pulled his name off the anti-gun bill, and that's how they compromised. It's tit for tat. You support this issue on this bill as long as you come out against that issue on one of your bills, and that's how they play off of each other.
Well, I won't be doing that. No, I'm going to be there reading the bills, studying the bills, asking a lot of questions, challenging the ideas and suggestions and the goals of the people that write the bills, trying to understand maybe where they're coming from and what they hope to accomplish. Right. But there is no compromising. There is an allowance to allow somebody to have a different opinion than me and to have different goals than me. But that certainly doesn't mean that I have to involve myself in any of it. I mean, I just don't. And I don't see this, like I said, as a poker game or poker chips or anything that's, to be compromising with. I mean, this is a serious job, and I take it really seriously as far as being informed and like I said, reading the dang bills. I mean, it seems to me like there's just been some issues with some of our reps, like not even reading the material. And so I don't even understand how you can get to a point of compromising if you haven't even read the bill. Like, what do you have to negotiate?
And well, that's how they negotiate, though. If you're someone who sticks by your integrity, you won't negotiate with them. Okay, we've covered the squatter topic. Why don't you tell us about how you're going to build affordable housing so that maybe that would alleviate the squatter situation? Because a lot of these people are just criminals and they're going to do this no matter what. But there might be some legitimate homeless people who are so desperate for a house, they're going to, go squatting in another person's property. Tell us, what would you do to help alleviate the homeless problem for people who really want houses?
Oh, well, I've thought about that for a really long time. And there actually is this thing called the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's a really neat idea. It's a program and a project that's already been successfully demonstrated for quite some time. What's come of that, I guess, like right now, is a youth job corps program. And so we have the facility. It's still the Wolf Creek Job Corps location was the original Douglas County Civilian Conservation Corps facility. And what I would like to do is I'd like to see more funding go into that. That Wolf Creek Job Corps continue to be supported as a workforce training, basically, and allowing people that are all the way up until retirement to enroll in that program. A lot of the people that are actually living out of the street are somewhere between 30 and 40 years old, and they have some job skills. They have such significant criminal records that the chances of them being hired, even at a gas station at a Walmart, are probably pretty low. And certainly if they're still living on the street actively homeless, that's going to be near impossible for them to be a candidate for any type of job. So
what do you do?
What I'd like to propose is that the Wolf Creek Job Corps facility allows individuals to enroll, later, later into their years, their adult years. And so instead of it being 16 to 19, estimated, on enrollment, that, having it go to 60, 65, and, making a priority place for returning, for veterans returning home. And so the idea is that there would be a place for people to go that want to get off the street, that are sober, that are able to demonstrate, being able to follow rules, and that they want to go to this job training program. And then ideally after, 12 to 18 months, they'd end up with some type of certification and a referral to an actual employer within the area that they choose to live. So it would be a little bit of a hands up kind of program, working through something that's already developed and funded right now.
Would you require them to be sober? Would you require them to not break any more laws? I mean, there should be
Yeah.
consequences for those things.
Yeah, I think that I'm confident there's a good pool of people that would be ready to do that right now. I mean, there's plenty of people that actually are sober. Hi, nephew. There are lots of people that are sober that are actually still kind of existing in this homeless environment, and by God's grace, it's just there's so many individual people that, different people have their vices, and drug and alcohol is not always what it is for everybody. So
you mentioned putting money into this program, and they have just given, through House Bill 5019, they gave over I think it was around $600 million to the governor. This last session, they gave her another 200 and some odd million dollars, all to develop affordable housing, which I think is going to just be more waste, to be quite honest with you. I think there are other ways to do this. Are there ways other than putting money, throwing money at the system, giving more money to the politicians? Are there other ways that you could think of that would alleviate some of the problems of new developments, new housing developments?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, from house and state level, I mean, they certainly could be working on some policy to allow single occupancy units to be purchased, to be able to buy a mortgage on that. Say you want to buy your apartment complex or your apartment unit in your complex, or if you want to purchase a duplex unit, or maybe it's a downtown flat or something above downtown. I mean, there's a lot of commercial property that's actually sitting vacant, that has for some time, and even in commercial units, they can separate them out, and with construction, you can create dormitories and single units within a larger scale project. And so certainly there's some policy that could be worked on right now. I mean, in regards to that, just being able to buy smaller units. I think that would be really helpful, and that would actually help alleviate that need for several thousand, possibly a lot more than that. I mean, I have no idea really to what extent that would reach, but I think right now between Douglas County and Coos and Curry, I mean, we're many thousands of units behind on our housing in the projection of growth. And so if there was a way that they, just who's in the House and who's in the Senate right now, if they were able to work on that policy, could hugely impact the amount of people that are looking for a piece of property. They may be able to qualify for $100,000 loan, something around that, around the $150,000 mark. But really getting into a single family dwelling at the $200,000, $250,000 mark is kind of getting to the point where it's out of reach for a lot of young people, and also people that are not really young, just people that are trying to restart their life or moving here with limited resources.
Before we go any further, someone on the Facebook line, she put a comment in. She says, Rob, maybe open up your phone line and see if anyone listening has some good ideas on how to tackle this problem. I don't have any, but I'm sure someone out there does. And Marla, I'm sure they do too, but I'm not going to give out my personal cell phone number to have people call in. They're either going to have to comment on Facebook and they're going to have to comment on YouTube, but I don't have the availability to put people through on the phone. It's something I'm working on, and hopefully later we'll get that problem solved. But I do have a question for you, Ashley, concerning the homeless problem. You were on the urban renewal committee for the city of Roseburg, and one of the problems with housing right now and being able to keep housing and be able to keep it affordable is we pay a lot of taxes. Now, urban renewal doesn't directly tax people, but it does take taxes out of the other 10 districts that are overlapping in urban renewal area, and those districts has to pay that debt. What would you do about urban renewal? Because right now it's taking about $100 to $200 million out of the common school fund. What would you do with urban renewal? Do you think it should continue to exist? Should we get rid of it? What's your idea?
You know, during city council, we had urban renewal meetings. They basically, by the time they came to council, it was more of a formality on something that we were just putting a vote in for some sort of application or some kind of funding that the city manager wanted to apply for. Can you go get your mama, sweetheart? Because I'm on the phone. Can you go get your mama for mama? I love you. Go get your mama, please. So that right there is basically kind of more of an administrative end of it, because no, hold on a second, nephew. Please go find your mother. I love you. Please go. Okay. So yeah, so the urban renewal end of it is basically, from my perspective on city council, was more around like swapping, like land swapping, and also the administrative part of the orchestrating of that, these big huge land deals that basically are going to decide what property they're going to trade for other property within the same perimeter or within a boundary. And so I don't know if it's really something that needs to be completely dissolved or not. Quite frankly, I'm not exactly certain on that. I think that there's probably a benefit to it. Certainly as we're looking to grow. I mean, because Roseburg being the largest city in the district, and then our surrounding districts are dependent on our relationship with one another. Lots of industries overlap between our different counties and even the different districts. And so,
if you were in the Senate, Ashley, you would be able to pass a law, or I'm sorry, you would not be able to just pass a law, but you would be able to introduce a bill that would be able to eliminate a lot of this economic development money that is nothing but corporate welfare. And would you be willing to do something like that to alleviate some of the tax burden on your average citizen?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And even then with economic development, I don't really see that money going as far as it really should. Even on how those companies come back to economic development, trying to get some of that tax money back for the projects that they feel are going to be a benefit to us, it doesn't really seem like the money gets spent very well. So it's definitely concerning. There's a lot of money that's ran through economic development, and there's a lot of opportunities for corruption and for some of that money to kind of slip through the cracks.
Now, one of the things, and Virgil is pointing it out here, is that Oregon is one of the most business unfriendly states in the nation. And I always thought, let's throw a flip on economic development. And one of those things is urban renewal is a completely different animal than an enterprise zone. And I believe that we should turn the whole entire state into an enterprise zone where people can come in, buy land, and until they develop that land, give them maybe 3 years, maybe possibly 5 years of not having to pay taxes until they develop that land, if it's for a business. And then once that business is up and going after the 3 or 5 year landmark, then what we would do is start charging them money for whatever the value of that property is after it's been
Thank you.
developed. Would you be interested in something like that?
Okay. You know, I'm not sure. I like the idea. I'm definitely going to think on that a little bit more. I hadn't actually really considered the idea about, you know, that's just interesting. I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I definitely will think on that some more tonight. I hadn't actually quite thought about that before.
It's one of the ideas I had talked to our state assessor about, that he's always talking about how beneficial enterprise zones are in the county, and it seems to only benefit certain stuff. But I always told him, well, if it's such a good thing, then let's do it for the entire state. Let's do it for the entire county. And he liked the idea. He thought it was a great idea. But something else that I agree with Osborne is we've got to do something about the development fees that are going on. We got the development fees are really high. You've got land use restrictions because of LCDC, the Land Conservation and Development Council. And then you've got urban growth boundaries that need to be eliminated. Tell me, what do you think about some of those? The permitting process.
You know, I certainly believe that system development charges are something that that our lawmakers can, you know, that they can manipulate that a little bit. They could maybe put a halt on some of them, depending, you know, specifically on different areas. I know around a large commercial development, it doesn't really make sense to hold that income away from your city and your county coffers, especially when you're talking about so much infrastructure development and utilities, and maybe having to rebuild an intersection or something. I mean, some of that stuff is just like multi-million dollars. And so, and the impact to the community. So it makes sense that they pay their fees on that. However, the situation that we're in with the residential development and the need for the housing units, and I think with system development charges, I think that should definitely be put a pause on until we start getting ourselves aligned with the units being developed and our future growth. I think creating density within the communities, I think, is beneficial to all of the residents around there, because those developments raise their property values, should hopefully, and so that should be good. I think that's a reasonable thing to say, hey, can we just put a pause on these system development charges around residential building? And then the hillside development, that we live in a valley. We're surrounded by hills. So we've been building on hills since before there were building codes, since before there were building inspectors. They've been building houses on hills in our communities. And so the hillside development policy comes from the state. At least that's what the city always told us. As city council members, they blame the state for that policy. So if hillside development restrictions come from House and Senate, then that needs to change. And I'd like to work on that when I get there. Because the cost of developing those hillside lots are just, it's stupid. It's basically thousands of dollars for a geotechnical engineer to come out and like scrape the soil and dig down a few feet and like take some soil samples and put together a report that basically is turned into the building department. And so it's just another way to slow growth. And I say it like that sort of disrespectfully, because it bothers me as a contractor and as somebody that's chose to live here and stay living in my own hometown, that if our lawmakers are doing things that restrict our growth, and that means money on my end, and as a business owner, if you're restricting my growth, then you're restricting the amount of money that I can make. And that's dang near like fighting territory. You know, I mean, you want to fight about something, mess with people's money. Yeah. Hold them back, you know, keep them from growing, you know. It's just, yeah, what an insulting thing that our lawmakers are actually doing to hurt us.
Well, one of the things that I always talk about with friends, and I argue this issue, they always talk about affordable housing, and they're always talking about apartment units. They're talking about small housing. And I always tell them it doesn't matter whether it's small housing or large housing. We got to encourage growth for all size housing, because when a person moves to another larger house, that means their house becomes available for the next person down the rung on the economic ladder. And so, you talked about small units, but don't you think that the housing market should be geared to let the market decide what houses they want to choose? And I think most people want a family house, a regular house for families that has a yard, that has a backyard. I think that's more preferable to people than these tiny houses with no yard, or an apartment with just a patio if you're lucky. What do you think on that?
Definitely. I definitely think that there is a diversity in our populations, and people have different needs and wants, and they have those at different times of their life even. I mean, you could live in a big old house your whole life, and then maybe as you get older and you have limited ability, limited mobility, you may want to start downsizing. A lot of people get to a certain age
Right.
and they start wanting to move out of those big houses with the big yards and all the maintenance of all of that. And so what I see, the trends I see, is that the aging population and even a lot of younger people are wanting smaller units, because it frees up their time to actually do things with their life. They don't want to spend, maybe they don't want to spend their whole day or their weekend mowing the lawn and trimming the trees. Maybe, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe literally after they worked 40 hours slaving into the ground, maybe they just want to, play their game or something. Or read a book for the weekend or something. Maybe they don't want to do all of that stuff that it takes to maintain a large piece of property, or a real estate piece of property, or like a investment property or something. So
Right.
people do want smaller units. But what you're saying is that about those bigger houses, and we love those bigger houses. I mean, I'm a drywall contractor. We love the big houses. The professionals in our community, they need houses. They have some of them have a lot of kids and big families, and so when they come here, maybe from wherever they're moving from, because they're getting a job at administration at the VA, or and maybe they're involved with the mortgage companies, or a real estate investor themselves, or something like that, or maybe this will just be a retirement for somebody rich and famous from somewhere else. But again, with those system development fees, I don't really understand, really even just hitting those people with those fees when it comes to building a home, because like you said, that the other homes that the individuals move from will be freeing up the real estate for another family to move into. And so as there are newer homes and nicer homes, then people can, they can be more successful and they can move into something bigger. I mean, that's great. But again, I just don't think that all that money just needs to be hit with those fees right up front. I'd really like to see something maybe like deferred for projects like that, where they can pay those fees on the back end, allow them to dig in the dirt and get the foundation work done, get the infrastructure and the utilities put in, and then hit them with a lien if they don't pay those fees at the end of their project.
Right.
Not hitting your developer with all those fees out ahead of even putting anything in the ground.
So you had sent me a bunch of information that I had posted, and one of them says I will work to, and then you got a bunch of issues. And we've already talked about the first issue, the build affordable housing. The second one is protect parent students' rights. Tell me how you would protect parent students' rights.
Well, first of all, I'd like to just explain what I believe is a parent-student right. And I think that is just basically, is a foundation piece for being able to go to a public school system. The students should feel safe while they're on the school property. That should be from the time that they are crossing the street, entering the property of the school. They should be in a protected environment. They should feel like that they're in a safe, comfortable place to be learning. They shouldn't have the stress of political things or outside sort of outside affairs that don't directly involve the student, or the parent, for the matter of fact. I think that, being a parent myself, um, once when you have a kid and you have them in preschool and kindergarten and first through fifth grade, there's a lot of encouragement for the parent to be involved with their student's success, and to be an in-class mom, and maybe you volunteer a couple days a week in your child's classroom, and you help organize some things for lessons that day, or you're just your assistant to the teacher. And after sixth grade, that pretty much drops off. That's basically, once they leave grade school and they enter into the middle school, high school arena, there's a real separation between the parents' involvement with the kids and the classroom, and the parents are less welcome in the school environment. And so I think that that's basically at a disadvantage to the students and to their learning. And so basically, when I say that I'd like to protect the parent-student rights, what I'm implying is that that students be able to have a safe place to get their education without all these political barriers on them.
Do you think the money should follow the kid, whereas now they just go by how many kids go to a school, and then the school gets that much money? Do you think that money itself should be attached to the kid so that parents can decide to take them to a charter school or a private school or homeschooling, and the money should stay with the child?
Offhandedly, I like that, and off the cuff, I would say, yeah, I would support that, on account that I think that if a child is not having the best possible experience, the best possible learning and social experience that they can within that school, then the parent has every right to remove them from that school and put them in a different school. Because as a parent, your child's success and their success with their education is your most important thing. I mean, you only get one shot at this. Your kids are only going to be this age, that they are right now. And so it's just really important to get it right, as a parent, that you don't just let your kid have to stay in a school that's being, that's just not being given that respectful environment to have a good learning experience. And so if that's not happening for your child, you have every right. You should be moving that child to where they're going to have the best learning experience, where they're going to be the most successful.
So going on to the next issue you had listed, it says remove Winchester Dam. I don't even know where Winchester Dam is, and tell me why you want it to be removed.
Fair enough. Well, you probably actually do know where it is. You probably just hadn't really realized it. A lot of people drive right by it on the I-5. Between Winchester and Roseburg, before you get to the Roseburg exits, southbound, you'll look to your left after you pass Wilbur there on the I-5 heading into Roseburg, and the dam kind of stretches out across the landscape there on the North Umpqua River. And so, but maybe not. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's iconic for the folks that live here because we're used to it in our environment. But as far as the dam itself, it's basically it's a private structure, and it's managed and operated by the water district, by the Winchester Water Control District, and so they manage it and operate as a local government. And so the property owners above that make up the water district, and there's about 100 property owners or so, and they cover maintenance fees and pay fines and things that come from the state in regards to in regards to the upkeep and the repairs that require for keeping such a large piece of infrastructure. It's a dam, and it's made up of concrete, and there's lumber behind there too, and it's degraded. It's a very old structure.
Where would the water go? If the dam was removed, where would the water go? Would it just flood those fields? Because I'm picturing fields in front of that.
Just recently, it went through a dewatering because there was some repairs that were attempted at the dam, and so it was completely emptied. There's a process. They on the on the south end of the Winchester Dam, the city of Roseburg has part of their intake to their water treatment facility. It's like the first point of where they're pulling water out into some holding tanks up there. And that's the beginning part of the water treatment process for the city of Roseburg. And on that side, that's basically the main flow of the North Umpqua River. And there's ways that they can let the water out in a controlled way, so it's not just completely, letting it all out at once. Removing it doesn't have to be quite a catastrophic event.
Okay. I would have to go and study more on this issue, and I imagine the reason you brought it up is that it would have to be done at a state level, not the local level. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. From living here, I'm born and raised here, so I've lived here my whole life. And we used to take field trips there in elementary school, and even into middle school, we'd go there quite a bit. Just get an ice cream cone from Dairy Queen and go to the dam and walk down those stairs and go and look in the fish viewing to see how many fish were in there. And just looking back on it now, that those windows would be so filled with fish that you could not even count them. I mean, they would just be one over the top of the other, and obviously moving around and stuff. And so, counting them was dang near impossible. And then these sucker fishes were just, attached to these sucker fishes. These lampreys are attached to the window viewing. And so, as kids, kids get a kick out of it. But then as I grew up, I'm just watching and listening to how many times the dam needed repairs, and then the folks out there would get hit with fines, because we see that play out in the newspaper every time they end up with another fine from DEQ or anyway, which has happened a number of times over the years. And so it's a degrading piece of infrastructure that it's just been kind of limped along with repairs, and it's come to the point where it's time to just pull the Band-Aid off of it, and actually just allow the issue to heal. And
so Virgil Osborne is on the line right now, and he just said that the dam removal is in court right now. State legislature has no control. So I don't know what the parameters of that, but that's just interesting.
It is interesting because it's very interesting, actually, because there was a lot of people in the public that were watching the dam repairs, the attempted repairs that were recently made. Day to day, the public was out there watching that. And so just from what I personally witnessed myself, they had tires that were these tire mats that were, before the tire mats came out, they actually had the contractor had heavy equipment, like these dozer type of equipment that they were using, and it was rolling across the bedrock. Like, it just the type of like being a contractor and knowing that there's certain things that you have to prepare for a job, and then seeing them go out that project without, I don't repair bridges, so I'm not going to even attempt to pretend that I know what it requires, but I'm just going to say that it looked very much like a quick job, like they just wanted to get in there and get it done as soon as possible, and then the sooner it was over with, then that was it. And the amount of it kind of reminds me of the way the court went. It's so like third world country-ish, just like everybody's just gonna just go at it and just do it however they want to, without there actually being any real guidance or like a protocol or anything. But having the heavy equipment just running along the bedrock was so weird looking, like just seeing that happen. And then apparently there was one of the workers that fell off the damn thing. Like, you can't even you can't even be working on a roof without being tethered onto it. And so the idea that there was like one of their workers that fell off of it, what is going on down there? And
I have no idea.
I mean, honestly, like I remember reaching out to Virgil and like talking to him about this, and actually even bringing up the fact that, because I had a different issue that I was talking to some of the water master, the regional water master down in Southern Oregon. And I remember talking to him down there, the water master, and then them telling me that they were going to be in litigation with all this stuff. And so I remember telling Virgil that, and then Virgil's out there with our county commissioners taking a tour and telling the public like, oh, everything's good, everything looks good, and just no problems out here. And then literally within a few weeks after that, it's like, oh, they got hit with all these fines, and just really the shit hit the fan, really. I mean, you know, pardon my wording around it, but that's the best way I can explain it. And then, you know, to claim
Let me ask you this.
that.
Let me ask you this. You know, this is the funny thing about politics. We're not all going to get along, and some of us are going to have disagreements. And it seems you have a difference of opinion about what Virgil had said and what had happened a few days later with the fines and stuff. Can you get along with Virgil, and can you get along with other people in the Senate? I mean, do you think that's possible if you were to win?
Oh yeah, I get along, but it just ends up being in the type of relationship where once you get to know somebody, it's like, it's about a matter of respect. You know what I mean? And so it's definitely get along. Yeah. But you don't, there is nothing with politics that you're going to just like blow in the wind. You know what I mean? If you don't confront the issues and you don't actually talk about things like, and learn to listen to one another, and even eventually walk away with the realization that we are freedom loving individuals here, and that the right that we have to be able to disagree with each other and to have discourse is such a precious thing, you know. And then just to say, oh well, we're not allowed to argue, we're not allowed to be divisive about stuff, we're not allowed to you know, have differences of opinion. That's just, it's un-American. You know, we communicate with one another. We're going to have points where we're going to be divisive. And so,
I don't know any two people who've always agreed on everything. I mean, you know, I've been married a long time, and me and my wife still have arguments about things. So it's just human nature.
It's healthy, actually. It's really healthy. It basically provides the relationship opportunity to grow. And, you know, what I've seen with a lot of people over time, especially in our community, because you can't just, I mean, you can get up and move away. And I guess people do that, you know, but you're not going to run me off. You know what I mean? Like city council tried to do that, like just about every damn day that I was on city council, because, you know, communicating about some of these issues, really, when some of them do initiate an emotional response, a lot of folks would just rather you be quiet, so they don't have to think about that, so they don't have to hear people talk about that, you know. And so that's where the whole go along to get along comes into play. And that's just never really been me. You know, I'm the oldest sibling out of 4 kids. I've always been sort of a delegator, and somebody that's, you know, goal orientated, and somebody that does what I want. And you know, and I don't know, like when I have something in mind that I want to do to basically be a part of my community, I'm not going to let some discerner or somebody that just basically is just like, oh well, you know, she thinks differently about that, we don't want her around. You know, it's just like it doesn't work like that.
Virgil had an interesting comment. He says, I'll be totally transparent. She has called me every name in the book. That's not how we get along. And
he hasn't been called every name in the book.
But you know, I've called a lot of people a lot of names, and I still get along with them. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, Virgil, I hurt your feelings. I hope you can get over it. You're a grown man and all, you know, like you're a grown man. Like put your little feelings on the back burner and just like grow up. You know, I seen Virgil just most recently on Lowe's. I was buying a new flag for the Sinclair gas station. because their gas station on Garden Valley, their flag was just tethered to bits. And so I was in there buying a flag from Lowe's, and I said hi to Virgil, said hi to him a couple different times, you know. So it's just basically, you know, that crap that happened with the podium and circulating that thing around with my name on it and stuff at that event and stuff, that was a low blow. And I'm speaking to Virgil right now, like he seems to be the most active participant on your show today. And I'm glad he has the time to do that.
Actually, I'm very honored that Virgil has taken the time to be on here. I mean, you know, Steve Hamerson is on here right now, and I'm just enjoying this conversation because I think, like you said, this conversation needs to happen. And unfortunately, we're going to piss each other off sometimes, and that's just the cold hard facts. And like you said, there are a lot of people who I have pissed off really bad, but I have to work with them and can work with them later on because that's just life. And, you know, trying to be cordial all the time, you can try your best, but it's not always going to happen. So I understand how both sides can think that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I guess you could understand it. I mean, somebody that you thought that you considered somewhat of a friend before, because I have always had a lot of respect for Virgil because he does the search and rescue stuff. And then him and I have always had a lot of interest with all the time that we've sat through so many county commissioner meetings and the testimony that I've given over the years with the county commissioners. I mean, Virgil's always been there in the audience and, you know, learning this stuff all the way back from when I was on city council. He was, you know, he was putting himself in the right rooms and doing what he needed to do because he wanted to see himself participating in with a elected official role. And so it's like, I've always had so much respect for Virgil. Oh my God, I'd talk him up, you know, and still do even. I don't want to talk shit about him like to anybody in the public, you know. And the thing with me and him was just basically like, I felt like he kind of did me dirty by just, you know, being like, oh yeah, I seen that at the podium. I seen that circulated around, but oh, I didn't make any attempt at removing it. And I just think, oh, well, what a friend, you know. I guess he's not my friend. I guess we're just like acquaintances with the political stuff because, you know, a friend, I mean, if a friend of mine's name was on some podium that was being solicited around, like slandering their character, representing them as like a problem or something, I would do my best to attempt to remove that. And so I just think,
and by the way, I was listed as well.
I think it was in poor taste, and I lost some respect for him over that. And, you know, and all of it would have taken and still would take now is a freaking apology. Like, how hard is it to say, I'm sorry? Like, I realize that offended you. I could see if the tables were turned, I would want you to remove that from the podium and not have that circulated around. But that's not what I heard. And so,
I don't know. I take the whole other side of that. I was listed as well. There were 5 of us who were listed. It was you, me, Todd Vaughn, Michaela Hamerson, and Paul Romero. And personally, I was honored. I was honored to be mentioned because they think I'm a troublemaker. You're damn right I'm a troublemaker. I've never gone to anyone's private meeting and made trouble. But yeah, I go to the county commissions. I go to the city council. I speak up with the legislators. I'm a troublemaker. I make no denial about it.
Rob,
and Osborne, he just said, he said,
you're a radio, you're like the shock jock radio guy, you know, like,
right.
I get it. I served in an official position. Like anybody else's name on there that's actually been an elected official before? No, my name's the only one on that list. And this is a whole other part of it is that the winery who basically allowed that, who welcomed and hosted the event was just basically a retaliation over the damn stuff because the winery owner, his son is a friend of mine, and I confronted him about that notice with my name on it circulating around there. And he basically told me, Ashley, that, you know, I need to realize that my opinions have consequences. And so that the whole thing of Cody and Melrose reaching them, the whole thing about them reaching out and having the lawmakers host it and them doing that was basically just to penalize me in the way that they wanted them to know that because of my stance on the dam that I was being reprimanded because because his wife, they live on the damn dam. They live up there. And Cody said that basically they're worried about their property values being tanked if the
Right.
dam gets emptied. And so I confronted him. I have the messages. He said that he knew that they offered their establishment because of David Brock Smith, because they knew that, hey, they're going to support David Brock Smith because he's just fine with the dam up here. He doesn't care about our constituents. He cares about the rich people that are on the dam. He cares about supporting the people that have the big money that can make the checks and make the payments to him, to give him campaign contributions. He doesn't care about the majority of the disenfranchised constituents who are basically swimming every summer in what's the runoff of the rich people up above in their boats and their
So
swimming
Ashley,
recognition.
Ashley, what Virgil is saying now, it says not one single part of that memo was about the dam. So he completely disagrees with you on that. So I don't know who to believe because
he disagrees with me. It's not even. It's a moot point.
Okay.
Virgil has nothing to do with this. He needs to just see himself out of it. This is a conversation between me and the winery that hosted the lawmakers event. I could give two shits about what he agrees with or not. He doesn't even have an opinion on this. This is so funny that you're even trying to hijack this interview. Is there anybody else that has any questions?
And that's, I don't blame Virgil for trying to hijack the interview. I'm just putting the questions on there and I do it for everybody, but it's partly because I think it's interesting because it's that discourse that lets us know each other and know who we are. I do have let's go down to the next issue because this damn issue is getting, pretty wild, but
it's a big issue here because, those mortgage companies and the real estate investors and the lawmakers like Virgil and his buddies, in the summertime, they like to go out there on the lake above the dam and, take the North River boat out and they have the little fancy party lights on and they're out there with their cocktails. And I'm not saying Virgil necessarily, but yeah, Cody and a lot of the people that we have mutual friends in common, a lot of the richer, wealthier elites of our community, that's their little party playground. So that's why this is such a big deal.
So Michaela has jumped in. Michaela Hammerson has jumped in, and she's just as upset about being listed on that memo for people who were troublemakers and wanted to keep these people out, which, like I said, you were on the list. I was on the list. Michaela was on the list. And she said, Steve is her husband. Steve and I are current elected officials, school board and transportation district. We were both on the security list. It wasn't cool. I was invited to the event by Court Boyce, and she was invited to the event. And if she would have showed up, security probably wouldn't have let her in because she was listed as the 5 people who were troublemakers. You and me, troublemakers. You, me, and Michaela and Steve.
Yeah, well, that may be, when everybody is in their positions, like basically affiliated with the GOP and like I said, your radio station. I mean, I could get it, being disruptors and whatnot, but literally like I've served in an official position before. And so to me, it feels a little bit more disparaging because, you're basically trying to say that, basically what are you trying to say? You're basically just trying to hurt me, hurt my reputation. I mean, I worked several years at Abyssal. I worked at the winery. I worked their wine club. I sold wine. I was integrated with Abyssal for several years. And so other people in the wine industry, I know them too. And that's why I reached out directly to the owner son after that whole interesting lawmakers kickoff event, which I could care less about going to. And no, I didn't get invited. So I'm glad they didn't invite me. I had better things to do that night anyway. Why in the heck would I want to go to that? That's so, but just to listen to them just be blabbermouths all night, and booze it up with a bunch of other rich elites. just who cares? Like, I got so many other better things to be doing. I mean, my sleep is like more valuable than spending the night there.
Well, Michaela agrees with you. She says, I agree with Ashley. None of us were a security risk. It was meant to hurt reputations.
Yeah, and that should be completely frowned upon in this arena, like especially when you're talking about leaders in your community and lawmakers and people that are supposed to have our own benefit of like our lifestyle and our well-being and our businesses. They're supposed to be like doing the work for us. And then for some reason, when it comes down to these campaigns and running in these campaigns, they're all teaming up together and basically going to try to railroad over other people in the community. How low? How gross and how low. And like, how about they just get a freaking life? Like, I thought the House and Senate was like an actual real job that they actually have to go to work. Like, I didn't know they were just like hanging out in the community half the freaking year and then just basically up in Salem just wreaking havoc up there for a few weeks at a time. Like, what is actually going on? Like, do they go to work, or is it just like all drama all the time?
I couldn't tell you. I've never been a representative. I've never held office. And so sometimes it's, I don't know the total experience of what they have to go through. And I do empathize with them many times, but I do argue with them and call them names and get mad and disagree with them. And sometimes I agree with them. It just depends. But let's move on to the next subject. It says disallow sex offenders in office. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would. I every single person that I've ever spoke with agrees with that. And so maybe that needs to be a citizen initiative or something and just get it right on the ballot, because again, our lawmakers are asleep. I remember talking to Gary Leaf about that while he was going up to Salem, and he was the same thing. Once the elected officials get into those positions, they're so worried about their little relationships that are basically come precedents to doing the work that we're expecting them to do when they get up there. They basically, it's just lip service for all of us. All they care about is just being reelected so they can go back up there into the fancy building and feel super important with all these other people with big egos.
So I'm going to skip down to this next one. It says update sex offender registration program.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that should have already been done. I mean, why in the world would they just continue to be labeling sex offenders and then have a backlog of 18 months that this individual has committed the crime, has already been released from jail, supposed to be on a registry, and that person's name won't be on that registry probably for 18 months. How is that even possible? Like, yes. Why wouldn't the state be in required registration before they leave incarceration? Why wouldn't the sheriff's deputy that's sitting there in the jail, in the actual jail, like, why wouldn't they be doing that before they let people be released from jail?
Yeah, I'm blown away at how the leftists in this state want to coddle sex offenders when we know that the recidivism rate is extremely high. We're talking in the high 90s that these people are going to commit the same crimes over again. And to me, you should be locked away for pretty much the rest of your life. You hurt a child, especially ones who hurt children. They should be, I'll even go any further. We should have public hanging day for child molesters and child rapists. I just think they're the most despicable, disgusting people on the entire planet. I mean, if you're under 18 and somebody is having sex with you, somebody is raping you, that's something that we need to take care of as far as these sex offenders. And, I agree with you. There has to, if you've done something so bad, you should be put on a list. You should be put in jail. It should be done with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another part of that is like, even to have an ID, because they have IDs, they have to go to their meetings, they have to, they're going into the mini markets to buy beer and buy cigarettes and buy drug paraphernalia, marijuana dispensaries, so on. I mean, sex offenders you're probably standing next to one of them in the grocery store and you don't even know it. I mean, it's just, there's no way to know
Right.
that they are. And so another point to that, I think, and something I thought about is that, there should be, a mark on their ID, like a stamp or some type of notification. So when this individual is in the tavern and hands his ID or her ID to the bartender knows who they have in their house.
Well,
The little 16, 18-year-old store clerk, she has a right to know
right.
who her customers are, and so it's just a matter of decency and a matter of like security too, with people and their safety and
Personally,
it's just this thing could be
I
way
would
better.
I would brand them Chomo. You would brand the word Chomo or pedo across their forehead so we all know what kind of sick bastard we're dealing with.
Literally anything. There's a million different ideas, and all our state and house rep has to do is just pick one. Just explore one. Like, just enough with the arguing and all. Who's not going to let us do this? It's just freaking do something. Just help. Try to make it better.
Well, let me ask you, the next one you have on the list here, it says provide law enforcement additional training. What kind of training are you talking about?
I'm talking about reimbursing our law enforcement officers for any type of martial arts, any type of MMA, any type of hand-to-hand combat that they may be paying for out of pocket. Because I've heard a lot of our officers are doing that. Their additional training, hand-to-hand combat training, is something that they're paying for out of pocket, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, every single officer, if they want to, should be reimbursed, or that training should be provided by the district or by the sheriff's office, but whether it's municipal or state, those officers should be reimbursed for their
if they're not being
non-lethal
reimbursed or
training.
paid for that training now, then they definitely should be, because I want officers to be able to use the most non-lethal force that they can to take people into custody. If they have to make them submit to what they're ordering them to do, I definitely think that officers should know how to do that kind of stuff. It's I don't know what the deal is on it, but if they're not being compensated for it, I definitely think they should. Let's go to your next one. It says launch fentanyl death awareness map.
Yeah.
What is that going to do?
Yeah, this is something I've seen demonstrated in other states. Basically, what it is, it's a part of an awareness program, and it launches a state website that connects these points of fentanyl death, and maybe it's not directly related. Maybe it wasn't a fentanyl death by a user, but I heard a story about a mom and a kid that basically were on their way to the airport, and they pulled over on the side of the road, was dealing with sort of a medical emergency with one of the kids, and was pulled over on the side of the road, and was struck and killed by another driver, and that driver was under the influence of fentanyl. And so that young boy lost his life, and that would be another example of that, and that story that would be available on that website. And it would just basically be a platform for victims and their families who have had experiences where fentanyl has been the result of a death, and they have a place to memorialize that, a place to add their story. And so others throughout our district and our state, but throughout the nation, would be able to have that as a reference and see that we're, trying to draw more awareness about the ramifications of fentanyl use, and how those deaths actually, they don't just impact that one family, but I mean, will impact throughout their communities.
So the next one you have listed is increased security for Oregon state line.
Yeah, this is another one I think is really important, especially with this immigration issue, and not being able to secure the border, or not being able to, choosing not to secure the border. We've had these issues with immigrants undocumented ending up in our rural communities, and we've heard stories about them getting shipped around on buses and private citizens' vehicles are caravanning them into different parts of the rural communities. Um, and so what I would like to do is like, I would just like to see cross training officers and departments on the Highway 101. And that mostly is focused on the entire stretch of the 101 through our district, comprising all the way to the California border down there, Brookings and Port Orford, and just right at the beginning of where California and you're coming over the border at the Highway 101, you're going to start seeing an increased amount of state and, like I said, I'd like to see them cross-referenced or cross-trained. So you would sometimes see we wouldn't see it, but their departments would see some of our officers basically training over with state officers and vice versa. And then they would basically add to increased security on I-5 as well as the 101. Mostly because, the areas around the ports specifically, and with the trucking industry, there's a huge problem that's been going on with human trafficking and the drug trafficking for decades. And then we've only seen that get worse. And so there actually has to be some sort of advanced, cross using these officers to where we have more officers on the coast and on the
Now,
roadway.
someone on GOP Oregon Uncensored, the Telegram group, asked me a strange question. So I'm going to go ahead and ask it to you anyway. What is the Global Justice Encyclopedia?
The global justice. I really don't know. I mean, they could do a Google search on that. That would be the best way. I'm not Google, and I'm not involved in global justice, so I refer back to DuckDuckGo or to Google. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So you support term limits?
Heck yeah, I support term limits. Yeah, because I think if you do your job right, then you should only need to do one term.
One term? Just one term?
Well, I mean, if you're going to be effective at your job, you should be able to blaze through some goals in one term. I mean, especially if you're talking about a one term being 4 years. That's a long time, 4 years. You better be getting some stuff done, not just showing up to meetings and giving a bunch of lip service and excuses to your constituents. And at 4 years of you actually doing the work, doing the serious work that needs to be done, you should be exhausted and ready for a vacation after 4 years. Yeah, you shouldn't be like going to bruncheons and cocktail parties and asking for another 4 years. Like you should be begging for a break after 4 years.
So if you're elected, are you going to quit after the first term?
I may. Yeah, I might. I mean, I did 4 years at city council, and that took everything I had during that time. I mean, just the backlash from some of the people that oppose your policies and your ideas. I mean, I suggested that the city use 10-acre piece of property that they've already owned for like decades. Their only future use for this 10 acres is a future park. And I was reprimanded by my city council. I was sanctioned by my city council just for talking about using their property that they already own for a homeless camp, for their own city homeless camp that they're working on right now. And so it's constantly just trying to basically retaliate against me, try to run me off, And I've seen it in the groups on Telegram and stuff too. It's like, oh, if everybody just supports Todd Vaughn, then maybe Ashley will just delete herself from the group and not, and one less person here, opposed to the
I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not.
Well, it doesn't feel very welcoming.
Right. I know, but it's we need everyone's voice.
Everybody's supposed to just grow up, suck it up. If something bothers you, don't bring it up. Don't talk about it. Otherwise you sound like a whiner. You sound like a baby. And politics isn't no room for no babies. So if you get your feelings hurt, then you probably should just find something else to do.
No crying in politics is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
All right. I like it. So I'm going to put the last two issues that I'm going to ask you about in one because they're kind of related. Voter ID and hand counting ballots. You support that idea?
Heck yeah. I mean, I have a driver's license. I have a library card. I mean, there has to be ID for all of that. I mean, we're getting ready to have to start having like a traveler ID just to be able to fly on an airplane. Like our our regular ID is not going to suffice.
Right.
So, I mean, how many IDs are there already for so many other things that we don't even debate? But a freaking voter, to vote. Yeah, I think so. You know why? Because our city manager, the current and the former, so for the last 5-6 years that Nikki's been our city manager and the 7 years that Lance was before,
Yeah.
both of them casted their ballots from a townhouse neither one of them ever lived at. Not even one freaking night. And so they were casting a ballot when they lived out in the county jurisdiction. They don't get a vote on what happens with the mayor. They don't get a vote on who's going to be the city councilor of that ward. They don't get a vote on new taxes or tax increases and things that have to do with what your taxes are spent on within the city because they're out in the county. But these two have been casting their ballot on city issues, influencing the election results of city issues. And that's been completely fine. Actually what happened is that the city council, because they actually got legal representation and because the last two city attorneys are basically phonies in a lot of ways because they only cared about protecting their job and less about the city being truthful in representing the adopted city charter and their employment contract, because I thought lying on your employment contract was a federal offense. And
I had no idea.
On freaking job application, isn't that a federal offense?
To lie in your job application? Oh, hell no. We'd all be in jail for that.
Well, so it's just, the lawmakers seem to be that they can just do whatever the hell they want to. And if they don't like the rules, then they just change it. And then that's just how that works. And then the rules really only apply to you and me and all us common folk, who are dumb and uneducated and who can't represent ourselves.
Disenfranchised nobodies. Yes. We're
all nobodies until somebody wants a campaign contribution or they want us to circle in their oval on their ballot, and then we're all of a sudden important to them. But other than that, no. And, and that's why I could care less about being at their dumb parties, because the people that I represent, my neighbors, my community members, they can't go to the dumb dinners. They can't afford $200-$300 dinners. They barely can afford a bag of groceries for $100 at the grocery store. And our lawmakers are out hobnobbing over martinis and glasses of wine and stuff and their fancy shoes. And, it's like they're so disconnected from the normal people in their community that they're supposed to be. I mean, other than Virgil, what I can say, and I will say something good on him because I'm going to show him how this class thing works, and his work that he's doing with search and rescue is like undeniable. It is a true service to the community. Honest to God. And I thank him from the bottom of my heart, because I've seen the work that him and his search and rescue team have done, their training that they've done, and their effectiveness in rescuing people who are in dire straits and who are in desperate need of rescuing. And so I'll tell you right now, I have a lot of respect for Virgil because of that.
So let me go into another question. You're running against David Brock Smith as the incumbent. There's two other people in there. There's Todd Vaughn, there's Paul Romero, but David Brock Smith is the incumbent. He's the big dog on the block. Is there anything good or bad you would like to say about David Brock Smith?
I think David Brock Smith is tenacious. I mean, I think anybody that even wants to be involved in any of this stuff, representing the community and speaking on these issues, I mean, you have to be willing to, take some hits. So it's just not like you just don't see anybody doing this job. Like otherwise we'd have like 100 candidates, it's like you practically have to beg people to want to do this work.
Right.
and then you think about like, oh, only 60,000 a year. Wow. Okay. There's like,
No. I think it's much less than that. If it's a senator, I think it's like $33,000 a
well,
year.
regardless, I mean, you're talking about being right in the same wage as like a minimum wage worker or somebody that maybe might be like a assistant manager of like a Taco Bell or something. You know what I mean? So like, come on now. Then you got to pay your own wear and tear on your vehicle and drive yourself like David all the way from Port Orford. What? That is so far. Lord, I go down to the casino and I'm just like, God, that's a long ways to get back home. But Port Orford to Salem, it's just, at least with that, like I'm a lot closer to the freeway. So getting to Salem is going to be a lot easier and convenient for me than it would be for somebody driving all the way from the sticks out Camas Valley or Tiller or anywhere toward the coast. I mean, gosh. And the route too. I mean, the coastal roads in between the valleys are like treacherous during the wintertime. You come over any one of the summits between Coos Bay or Reedsport, and you're going to be hitting black ice. Anything over dark in certain times, so like January, February, you'll be like on black ice.
I never understood why they made people travel all the way up to Salem during winter. I think part of it is because they don't want their fellow constituents coming up there to see what they're really doing in the big house in Salem. That it may not be true for every politician, but I think a lot of politicians like going up there in the wintertime because they are secluded. It does keep people out. I know I've been up there a lot of cold mornings in January and February during the legislative session, and it was just miserable standing there in the ice cold rain, and then getting in to see these guys and stuff,
Yeah, and I have to, make an honorable mention on something recent that's been going on that I've been following. It has to do with the VA housing funding.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bid that went out for some funding for a VA housing unit, and I'm not sure. I think another Oregon city got the bid on that. And I'm drawing a blank on which city that is. I think it's somewhere up in the northern part of the state. But Roseburg had intention, because we have the VA here. Roseburg had a very real and clear intention on making sure that we got additional VA housing. So that funding that was secured for the development of that and for that project to continue forward is invaluable for our community. And being somebody right now who is moving a vet. My mom has a vet that's living here, disabled vet, and just getting him, transitioning from living here at her house to getting him into his own room and at his own place, and to keep his housing subsidy that comes from HUD. It basically, we just need so much more help for our vets.
Right.
We need more housing. We need more help. And yeah, I'm incredibly appreciative to the lawmakers, Virgil and Christine Goodwin, if any of them did actually have their hands on that. And I know Virgil worked on it, and I know David Brock Smith worked on it, and I'm appreciative of that, because that level of intention on getting that money and those projects to happen here in our community is really truly helping our community. And we're not seeing that yet, but we will. We'll see it in the future, hopefully. And so I guess you just take it one step at a time, but I do recognize that, and I'm appreciative of them for the work that they've done on that.
Virgil said now the feds have to kick in 90 million. So who knows what will happen with that. And with the election year coming up, maybe Biden will think, hey, this is a good idea to give Oregon 90 million to grease the palms of some of them voters out here. And who knows? We might actually.
We had no problems giving it to other foreign relationships, and
no kidding.
So I mean, it's our money. We already earned it. We already paid for it. It's like ours. They need to give it back.
Ashley, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. This was, like I said, I like to do the long interviews to get more in depth, and I like to give people the chance to answer their question as succinctly and clearly as possible, and give them the time to make those points. So I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I hope you'll be back again.
I want to point out that it's like, I probably have grass pieces in my hair, and my face is all flushed from running the mower today. And so I don't know that I'm at a level 10 right now. I mean, I haven't even had lunch yet. And so, um, and I like to eat before I talk about politics. And so that's against my better judgment a little bit there. And you, there are different times when you're a bit more focused. And so I had my little 4-year-old nephew running around here, and the dogs, and my sister and her significant other, and all
The
of that was
homeless
happening.
guy flipping you off.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the squatter on his bike flipping me off. Yeah. So there's been lots of interruptions, and I just have to tell you, thank you very much for your patience with me, certainly with the Wi-Fi connection and everything at the start of the interview. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for asking me all those questions and stuff too, and let me talk about it.
Before I get you out of here, real quick, how can people reach you?
Yeah, call me. My cell phone is public, 541-530-1460. That is my cell number. It's my personal number. I answer it when people call. You can text me. I get text messages that I'm on Facebook. I keep a pretty open profile. So my posts are public. I welcome public engagement. Welcome to follow me. If you don't want to friend request me, you can kind of just peer into things as you want just by hitting the follow button. You can message me through Messenger. That's fine too. Reach me on any social media platform, Twitter, Rumble. I mean, not the Rumble, the Telegram,
Right.
Nextdoor, TikTok. I'm on all of them, any of them. So whichever one you're comfortable with, or whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to do face to face, I mean, I'll come to you, and we can do breakfast or lunch. I mean, anything. I mean, I'm open to it. Just I want to engage. I want to talk to people about this stuff, because
Cool.
even if I'm not elected, it's still an opportunity for us to work together and talk about these issues, and maybe we
Right.
can, gang up on our lawmakers, and we'll just talk about it a little louder together. Maybe they can listen to us then.
Well, I want to thank you for being on, and good luck in the race. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. And thank
All
you
right.
to all your audience members and everybody asking questions, and thank you very much. I appreciate everybody very much. Blessings. Thank you.
All right.
Bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. And that was Ashley Hicks, who's running in Senate District 1. What can I tell you? If you're a voter, get out there and vote. You've got 4 candidates in the election in Senate District 1. You've got the incumbent David Buck-Smith. You have Paul Romero. You have Ashley Hicks. And of course, you have Todd Vaughn, who are running in that race. It's a pretty contested race. It's getting pretty heated. You people know where I stand. I like 3 of the 4 candidates. I'm not happy with the incumbent, but that's my issue. And I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I'm telling you that I do like Paul Romero, because I think he would be nothing but a fire thrower in the legislature. I don't always agree with him. I think he's done some weird stuff, but I think he would be a flamethrower in the Senate district. I mean, in the Senate up in Salem. And I also think that Ashley Hicks would be an interesting vote on that. I think she has some qualities to her. I don't know how to put it. I don't agree with on some of her issues, and some of the things I'm not even sure where she's coming from. But I also think that she could give pretty damn good representation. The person I am supporting and, of course, endorsing is Todd Vaughn. I think Todd Vaughn could give a hell of a job, do a hell of a job. I think you need to send a logger to Salem. I think it's about time. He's a blue-collar worker. He understands most of the people in the district. And I think he's someone who definitely could get the job done, would get the job done. And that's why I'm fully supporting him. Normally at this time, I would tell you about the local meetings that are happening, but I didn't look them up. So I don't know what's happening this week. I'm going to have to go check it out. I've been very busy doing a lot of different things, helping on campaigns, helping create a whole new political action committees, helping with 501c4s being created. There's a lot of different things that I've been busy with, and you're going to see some of that stuff coming to you. Or, I'm an activist first. I'm a podcaster or a radio show host second. I'm an activist first, and maybe I should rephrase it. I'm a grandfather first. That's really what I am. I'm a grandfather and a husband first, then I'm an activist, then a podcaster. But let's put that in the right order. But I don't want anyone saying, see what a heartless bastard he is, doesn't even care about his family. Not true. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a grandfather first. And then I'm a podcaster. So I highly recommend you tune in on Friday. I've got James Heeb coming on this Friday, and he's running against Christine Drazen, which reminds me, I got to send Christine a message and see if she wants to get on the show. I've emailed Dennis Lithicum to see if he wants to come on. He said he wanted to come on, and we were working out a schedule, so I'll see what the deal is with him. But I also plan on getting several other candidates from other parties on here. The Democrats won't come on with me. I don't know what the problem is. They're afraid. They're afraid I might ask them some questions. God forbid you ask questions, So the Democrats, I invite them. If you're a Democrat and you're a candidate, you're more than welcome to give me a call or send me an email at rob@robtaylorreport.com or go to my website, robtaylorreport.com, and send me a special message, and I'll get you on the show. I'll give you time. Heck, I'll make a special date for it. And so I always try to do that for everyone. I try to be fair. I sometimes I'm an asshole, but I try to be fair. And so that's just the way I roll. And I try to give everyone a good interview because I want to hear what they have to say, even when I disagree with them. I mean, like I said, there wasn't everything that Ashley said that I agreed with, but I wanted to hear her reasoning behind it. And that's why I do these long interviews, so that we can get that information out. I hope to have on the 3 county commissioners here. I've already got 2 of them committed. I've got Chris Castleman and I've got Drew Farmer committed for a candidate forum. But for some reason, Bob Main hasn't contacted me back. I'm going to have to give him a call, find out what's going on, so we can get him on the show so that you people can find out where they stand on the issues. And the reason I'm going to have all 3 of them on at the same time is because it is a long form, and we can get into an in-depth conversation, the 3 of us, because there's a lot that will actually be 4 of us if Bob wants to come on. And we could get into in-depth conversations on where we're going to take the county, because we've got a lot of interesting places we're going to be going here soon, because there's a tax levy on the ballot for the county, and I don't know if it's going to pass. And if it doesn't pass, there's going to be some real change and the county departments. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be a lot of change. We didn't play Where's 3H Tree Service today because Matt never got back to me. He's a very busy man, but we're going to start a different way of playing 3H Tree Service, or Where's 3H Tree Service. We're going to start at noon, and we're going to post it on Facebook. And if nobody has found Matt or 3H Tree Service by 3 o'clock when the show starts on Monday, we will announce it, or we'll announce the winner if someone has found Matt. And that's how we're going to play it, because they're now starting earlier in the day and they're getting finished a lot earlier. So they're not always working past 3 o'clock. So that's one of the reasons. And if you need to get some trees out of your yard because they're a problem, you don't want any of those problem trees. You got to take care of that. I understand that. You got to take care of it. So call 541-294-1800. Once again, that's 541-294-1800 at 3H Tree Service. And they can take care of all of those problem trees for you. I also want to thank Tim from Tom and Gigs. Tim has been very busy because he's a guy at the shop. And so I don't think he was able to get on the show today because he was busy. I completely understand, but he's one of my sponsors, Tom and Gigs. I highly recommend them. If you're having those automobile needs, please go see them. If you need a remote control car, go check it out. If you need some tannerite, hey, like I said before, you got squatters, tannerite might be the solution. I don't know, just throwing those ideas out there. Please don't have your attorneys contact me. That wouldn't be very helpful. And of course, I want to highly recommend that if you got any extra money, please send it to Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun organization in the entire state. If it wasn't for Kevin Starrett and Oregon's Firearms Federation, we wouldn't be allowed to own guns in Oregon. It would be a very sad situation. They're the only ones who are truly defending our Second Amendment rights. They're holding up a lot of these bad measures in the court of law. They have defeated a lot of bad laws in Salem. I believe that Oregon Firearms Federation has done more than the Republicans have done as far as protecting your Second Amendment rights. So if you could, please give to the Oregon Firearms Federation. And even though they're not my sponsors, I do like to promote them because I think everyone should be proficient at using their guns. And if you like to go trap shooting or you like to go shooting your pistol, I highly recommend the Banded Gun Club. It's a great place to go out, and the pistol range, you can be out of the rain when you're practicing with your pistol. It's nice. They got a cover for you so that when you're shooting, you're not directly in the rain. That's very convenient, very convenient. So I highly recommend the Banded Gun Club, and I also recommend if you need to go practice with your rifle, there's a 150-yard shooting range here in the county, right next to the dump on Highway 101. It's between Bandon and Coos Bay. On Highway 101, go check out the Tioga Sports Park. That's, again, the Tioga Sports Park, or reach them at tiogasportspark.org. Very great group of people out there. And so that's just some of the things that are going to be going on. I hope you can join me Friday, and I hope you have a beautiful week. It's looking beautiful out there. I didn't see no apocalypse today. Saw an eclipse. Didn't see the apocalypse. But maybe that's a good thing because we're all still here and breathing. But until the next time I do see you, you know what I always say? Carry on, Coos County. Carry on.